Okay, I've gotten the hole hollowed out, and it's pretty straight. This piece will actually fit easily through there. One thing I did forget to mention is we're going to have to put a piece in between the actual pivot stick and the lock so that it can actually fit down there, because if you have these two just pushed together, you can only fit it in so far. So since this is 1/2 inch plywood, we're probably going to do either 7/8 or 3/4 inches of this, and we're going to have to put a nail through it, so this might actually be pretty tricky, getting the hole centered and to the point where it's not going to go out the sides, because we're actually going to end up putting a nail through it, through this piece, through the long piece, and into the bottom of the pivot stick. And you can just guess on this at first. Make sure if you do have a difference, make sure it's extra so that you can sand off any extra later and make it a pressure set. So now we've got basically what the pivot stick is going to look like. We're going to have the main part. We've got this part that makes it a pressure set into the plywood. And then we've got this locking pin. And you got to make sure with this piece, make sure that where you're cutting is flush and that it's flat, so it can meet flush with the bottom of the pivot stick and the locking stick. So, and just make sure you have extra so that you can always sand off some later, but you can, well, since it's small enough, you will be able to cut another piece, but just make sure that you have extra so that you don't waste your time sanding something that isn't going to be your final project. When you are drilling the holes through these pieces, make sure that they are straight up and down in your vise, and use your small spit. This one, I'm using a 1/16 bit, and you're gonna want to take, if I can get one without knocking the camera, you're gonna want to take a nail set and just make a small divot as close to center as possible. This way, when you're drilling, since the bit is so small, they tend to break really easily. So if you're trying to get it to go back to center after you've started drilling a hole, it adds torque and they tend to break. And this has happened to me before. So I'm going to drill the hole for this. It's the middle piece in between the actual pivot stick and the locking stick. So make sure it's straight up and down in your anvil. Careful not to put too much pressure on the bit, and drill straight up and down with the drill. And because it's such a small bit, sometimes you'll have problems getting them into your drill. Wow. Yeah, I wasn't very centered on this. Sorry for the focus, but as you can see, it's further to the left. On the top, I was pretty close to center. But just make sure that you can get it to where it's close enough to where it's not going to break out the side. So now we're going to drill the holes for the other two pieces, and when I finish with that, I'll get back to you. So now we have our 3 pieces drilled. I actually redid this piece, the middle piece, because I felt that the other one would break under pressure, and especially since it's a pressure set, I didn't want it breaking. So now you're going to take a nail similar to this one. It's probably about 1 inch or 1.25 inches long, probably 1 inch, and You want it to be slightly larger than the holes that you've drilled. As you can see, this nail doesn't very easily fit into there. So what I'm going to do is I've got my vise, and there's a space in between it, in between the two pieces. And I've put my nail into the pre-drilled hole, and I'm just going to tap the nail lightly so that you don't split the wood until it starts to come out the other side. And then you are going to add your middle piece. And now you can start tapping a little bit harder, because the holes are pretty much as big as they're going to have gotten. And now that you can't use the space between the anvil heads, you can just take a piece of wood that you're not going to use, and you can hammer into that. And now you're basically just getting that nail in to those pieces. So now we've got this nail through the two pieces on the bottom, and we're gonna put it through this piece. I actually tried fitting it in the other side, but the hole was actually too small, so it split. So I drilled a hole on the other side, and it fits perfectly. So now you can see how it would look like. So you're going to stick it in and just twist the bottom pieces. Now this might be pretty difficult if you have bigger hands, but you can actually stick something in the hole to help you start twisting. Oops. And you can see how it will be your pivot. So now all that's left is drilling the hole and getting the dowel, attaching it to the door, and then you've got a mousetrap. So I actually added a piece that came off of the top of this, drilled a hole in it, and I added it just underneath the pivot stick. That adds a ton of support, and it actually it adds integrity to the whole piece, and it's going to last longer. So once again, now we're going to drill the holes for the bait stick and find a dowel and cut the door. So I decided that the door needs to be 3 inches tall. That allows us space to add an anchor point, and it's not too long to where the dowel will add resistance and the door will not want to shut. It'll get hung up about right there. So we're going to cut this and start putting it together. As you can see, we cut the door and we've got our dowel. This is it's about 6 inches long. It's a piece of cedar, and because the door is so light, it doesn't have to be that thick. And I might add this: the lighter the door, the more sensitive your trap can be. Because the heavier the door, the more it will take to keep the door from wanting to close. So just poplar is pretty light, and when you can get it thin, you can make it to where it'll be an easy set trigger. And we are going to trim our dowel, the pivot, but we just don't want it to be too short. So now I have made a mark where I want my trigger hole to be. And that is right there. So I am going to be using the biggest drill bit possible that I have. And that is going to be a 5/16. And I'm going to drill the hole, and then we are going to make it big enough to fit our trigger stick in. Once again, I'm going to clean this up, and I'll be right back. So I drilled the hole for the trigger stick. I used a 1/2 inch hole drill bit, and this piece, this is going to be our trigger stick. It's about 4 or 5 inches long, and it's definitely going to get smaller. It's probably going to end up being 2 or 3 inches long, but I just wanted to show you guys how this is going to work. So basically, you've got either wire or thread. I have this beeswax thread that I use, and it's basically, this piece is going to have pressure from the treadle. Treadle is basically going to be holding it up, and when the animal steps on it, the pressure is relieved. This is pushed backwards, and it allows the door to fall. So we're almost done. We're really close. So now we're going to attach the pieces, and we're going to define an anchor point on our trigger stick. So what I've done is I've drilled holes in all the pieces that we're going to be attaching. For the door, I drilled 1 1/4 inches in because it's 2.5 inches across. This is the trigger stick. We're actually just going to do grooves and attach it with picture wire, which is what I decided to use because it's more durable and it's easier to tie, well, to attach, because with regular thread you would have to tie it. With wire you can just twist it. And this is the dowel. I've cut it to about 5 1/4 inches is what it is now. And so we're going to take about 3 inches of this wire for attach point. And we're going to thread it through this door. Oops. And then through one end of the dowel. Sorry, this is taking me forever. And then you're basically just going to twist the wires together. Now, for this, we are going to make some grooves. So we'll do that and then get. Here is our finished trap. I'm sorry my camera ran out of batteries, but real quick while I have it set, I'm going to show you how it works. So, say that you've baited the trap. You would have put peanut butter or something on the top of the treadle, which I will show you in a minute. And they want to go up in there, and when they step on the treadle, the door falls. So, what's going on is after we put these together with the wire, I cut this and I made a groove. That groove is based on where it needed to be for the height of the door opening. So it's hooked onto the bottom of this hole based on how high I wanted this door to be. So when you push that back, it falls. And this treadle is just made out of light wood, and it rests against the trigger stick when it is set in place. And basically what's going on is it's resting on this nail that I put. And inside the trap, when the mouse steps on it, it pushes down and lets the door fall. And that is your smaller live mouse box trap. Thanks for watching.